Alright, welcome. If you're new to the channel, my name is Elliott and you're watching Rickety Ski Reviews. Today, we're going to talk about a ski I owned. We're going to talk about the Stockli Stormrider 88. Now, to be fair, I own the 2018. This is the 2024. I don't know how much they've changed. It's a lot of years, but we're still going to give it a test, okay? I own these skis for about 3 years. Let me tell you what I thought about them. Now, the Stockli Stormrider 88 is kind of tricky because when I reviewed it, I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. I gave it my ski of the year. I thought this ski was fabulous. I loved it. When I first tested it, I didn't feel that way. When I first tested the ski though, I went into it kind of thinking, wow, these skis are almost twice as expensive as other skis, especially since they don't go on sale and other skis do. Like, you can get a pair of Atomics and Salomons for less than you spend on a Stockli. So I was very skeptical going into it. I was ready to kind of dock them because when it comes to actual people going out and buying skis, price matters. You have to justify a ski being twice as expensive. I talked about this in my Bomber review and it stands true for Stockli. I went into this thinking, God, this is a high bar that this ski's gonna have to clear. And to be honest, when I demoed them in Loon in New Hampshire, I was so impressed with the Stormrider 88. I said, you know what? This ski actually does the job of two different skis. It does well off trail and it really cuts through and carves super well. I was very, very impressed with the Stormrider. I thought, yeah, this ski is worth the money. It's doing two jobs and it's doing it well. The only ski that I thought kind of outperformed it with carving was the Stockli Laser, which is no big surprise. That is a dedicated carving ski and also a very well made ski. You know, overall value, the Laser SX that I demoed didn't provide as much value, didn't cover as much diversity as the Stormrider did. So ultimately, that was my ski of the year, and I think back then the Atomic Vantage was also my ski of the year because it was a really good value and I felt like it carved really well. Now, fast forward 5 years. I owned those skis myself for 3 years. I sold them last year. I bought them at a ski swap, had them for 3 years, and then sold them to someone else. My feelings on the ski have changed since then. And I know Stockli people kind of hand wave like, oh, well, you can't put a price on it. It's just such a good ski. It was a good ski. I gave it top ranks. I gave it the top score that year. But honestly, after owning it, it has a few flaws and you should know about them. Now, does that mean that I think Stocklis are bad skis? No, absolutely not. They're still really good skis, but they have shortcomings and we need to talk about it. The Stormrider 88s, when you take them in the woods on the East Coast, you don't notice this because it's a little bit choppier, the snow's not as deep, so it's hard to notice it when you're testing it out there. But when you take these skis out west in the powder, the snow is so light and the skis are so heavy. Not heavy like weight, like they just feel heavy, they feel dense. They tend to kind of fall through the powder and try to rail through it. Now, for most days that's fine, but when you get a really deep, light powder day, it's hard to enjoy the skis. They also tend to feel kind of stiff on the foot, and that feels, again, really good when you're carving on the ski, but it overextends itself in the trees in that it can feel kind of chattery on the moguls. It doesn't feel as nimble in the trees, like it's harder to get edge to edge because the ski likes to be pressured, and if you have to let off a little bit of pressure to kind of slarve out your turns, it can feel uncomfortable in that area. Still a great ski. I still stand by my score that it is a very highly rated ski, but it's not perfect. It has shortcomings. I'd probably say if I were to score it now, it's an 8.5 out of 10. I'd love to try a pair of current day skis though, because I don't think it's a fair comparison. Skis have all come a long way in the last 5 years, so I'm gonna hold my judgment, but I would say that the skis where they started was like a 9.5 and where they ended was like an 8.5. Over the years, they just kind of got long in the tooth in the design, and you start to notice some of that heavy reverberation on the legs. They can feel tiresome over time. When you put a lot of mileage on a ski, you really start to see some of those shortcomings. So that's my opinion on the Stockli Stormrider 88. Now, today, we're gonna see what our friends over at Ski Essentials think about it. So let's jump right into it and see what Ski Essentials thinks of the Stormrider 88. I know I'm operating on some kind of older information, but I don't think the design's changed that much from some of the videos I've watched, so I think we're still gonna be able to get a good review. I haven't seen this video specifically, but I've kept up with some of the design changes and some of the opinions, and I think we're still gonna be able to give a good reaction. So let's jump right into it. And here we go.
Hey skiers, it's Bob with SkiEssentials.com. Welcome to our 2024 ski test. Got a pretty new Stormrider 88 for you today. Some small changes in the construction, but overall a very similar footprint and overall feel. Shiny new top sheet as well. So kind of taking this Stormrider into the next level. All Stormriders for 2024, including this 88, get an updated wood core of poplar, beech, and paulownia stringers. So just gives it a little bit of a different feel. I found it to be just slightly stiffer, better kind of finishing that turn, but generally the same type of ski and keeps the same quality and precision and that top end level of stability and smoothness. The things that we've always remarked about Stockli hold true. They're insanely quiet. Their use of rubber dust and every epoxy laminate that they have really just keeps this ski about as smooth and stable as it gets.
I will say that, especially on the East Coast, I like that feeling. It gets rid of a lot of the chatter. It feels more stable than it kind of should, I guess, for what it is. Like, there are carving skis that don't carve as well as this all-mountain ski. So credit where it's due. I think Stockli does a really good job with that. And I think that if I was gonna score this as an East Coast ski, this would be like a 9 or 9.5. It's funny how that works, right? Like in the West, when you're floating, it changes how you ski, it changes how you kind of feather your turns. On the East Coast, when you're trying to rail, you're getting kind of the level of railing through turns that you would see from a K2 Mindbender, but also getting more diversity in your turn style. Like, it's a well-designed ski, and I agree with everything they're saying. It's very distinct, it's very gradual, it feels very smooth. Is it worth 2 pairs of skis? I don't know. I get some gnarly comments too about this, like, oh, you misspoke about the weight on it. And it's like, okay, but at the end of the day, I skied on the ski for 3 years. I can tell you how it feels. Sure, like, do I mess up on some of the technical notes? Yes, I don't do that on purpose, and I'm trying to get better about that. But how many people have skied on the ski for 3 years straight? Come on.
It's a really, really great option for that all-mountain skier who's looking for one ski to handle everything from firm groomers all the way to deeper snow, trees, moguls. This is about as versatile as it gets. Having that 88 millimeter underfoot width is just insanely useful for just a variety of different conditions and terrain. For us, where we ski here in Vermont, you see a lot of skis at this width. It might be a narrow option for skiers that are in snowier zones, but for the most part, the lighter weight, the ability of this ski to flex makes it better in softer snow.
It's not that great in soft snow, honestly. It's good for East Coast soft snow. I do think that this ski provides the best range for East Coast skiing. It honestly does, because it dampens the ski when you're kind of getting in those hard packed turns, and it really does a great job dealing with reverberation. It does a really great job getting flotation in East Coast powder. It is like the perfect range for East Coast. But on the West Coast, this width specifically is not the perfect ski for all West Coast conditions. It's really good for the groomers, it's really good for kind of some of the bumps in between, but when you get into powder, there are skis that do this a lot better. And we just gotta be honest about that. Like, there are skis that float better, there are skis that have kind of a better design for getting in between the trees, and honestly, the West Coast, the snow is so soft that you really don't get that much reverberation unless you're maybe in the Pacific Northwest or in certain times of the year. But it's overkill for the West Coast, and you can get kind of a better feather performance for a ski like, I don't know, I use this all the time, but like the Atomic, Salomon, Fisher does a really good job with it. I think for the West Coast, there are a lot better options, especially considering some of those skis are half the price. That being said, as far as the East Coast, maybe at least the short time I had in Europe, this would be a really great option, but the ski has limits. And pretending like, oh, well, because there's rubber dust in the makeup of the ski, it's perfect for all conditions, that is baloney. It's good for almost every East Coast condition. It's probably really good in the Pacific Northwest, but on the West, like Utah, Idaho, or really fluffy, fresh powder days, this ski
still retaining that firm snow, just tight turn style in anything that's firmer than softer groomers. But yeah, we got that updated wood core, still have that Tech laminate on top. So every time that we have this upper layer of metal, your bindings and boots are closer to it, and that results in a better transfer of energy. So having your foot closer to the metal laminate makes everything feel a lot smoother.
Okay, that's interesting. I would say for carving, it does feel like a smooth turn. I do wonder how much the bindings affect that as well, Like, are you gonna get better performance from that on a marker Griffin versus like a look pivot, since the look pivot is closer to the ski? I don't know. Sometimes this stuff comes up and I'm like, I don't always feel the difference that people talk about. It does feel like a very smooth, gradual bending of the ski though. I will vouch for that. And it also, once you get it loaded up, feels very stable.
But yeah, pretty light. This is the 175 here, coming in on the scale at 1,650 grams. So definitely on the lighter side. It's, you know, for a ski with metal, using other components like that rubber dust, you'd think it would be heavier, but not really the case. So great job by Stockli keeping this smooth ski super light and easy to use.
The other thing Bob's not saying, and you know I pointed out the weak points of the ski. Doesn't mean I don't like it. I still like it. I would say also that this design does a better job decreasing reverberation, especially for that weight, than a lot of other skis do. Like the Volcal M6 Mantra has to have a much beefier design to do the same thing. So I will say that this ski does a really good job of not only getting into the turn, but holding it really well.
From a shape and profile perspective, we do still have that nice positive camber underfoot, and then not a ton of rocker to talk about here in the shovel. You know, it's very much a directional ski, directional all-mountain ski, and that shows in the tip. Not a ton of taper. As we get wider in the Stormrider series, that taper becomes more pronounced. And then in the tail, pretty much the same story as we've had with this 88 for the past few years, where pretty much zero taper. I would call that a very flat tail, save for this tiny little bit of splay at the end here, which lines up with that metal insert that goes into the ski. So that secondary laminate of metal just in the tail here doesn't extend into the cambered portion of the ski, just giving you a little bit of friendliness on the tail end. But in general, very stiff, very responsive tail.
What's nice about that is that it really creates a strong platform for you to build off the end of the turn, so you can kind of stand off of that and push forward into the next turn. So if you think about like your turn you load, you kind of stay in that position with your hips, and then you have to go into your next turn, right? You have to start the next one. So if you don't have a stable platform on the tail, it's hard to do that. Nordic enforcers don't really do that very well. This ski does it really well. It's a very stable platform to kind of build your pressure and move forward into the next turn. If you watch like slalom skiers, like World Cup slalom skiers, they do it so fast and so well. That's a really good example. But you need a good platform, and you know, the Stockli does a good job providing that.
Mostly due to that squared off shape and the fact that there's that full metal laminate throughout the whole ski. You know, it does come at a price, but you're getting the quality and the smoothness out of it. It's not that this does more or better things than other skis at this high-end performance spectrum. It just does them quieter and smoother, and that's really what you're paying for. But
that is such a good explanation of Stockli, because it's like, yeah, the ski is more expensive. Is it like, could you on paper totally write that off? Like, is it going to do the job of two skis, especially if you bought them on sale in this time of year in the summer? No, it can't. But does it do some of the best carving you're gonna feel? Yes, especially on the East Coast. West Coast, you can feather things more. You don't need that much dampness. But on the East Coast, yeah, this is gonna be the smoothest carve you're gonna feel. Is it the best absolute powder ski out there? No. But is it gonna be like suitable, and is it gonna feel pretty good when you are there on the East Coast? Very important asterisk, yes. On the West Coast, it's kind of overkill for the carving, and the lack of performance in the trees really makes it suffer. But if I was on the East Coast, this is like a luxury car. Everything feels smooth, all of the turns feel tight, everything kind of feels well polished. And if you enjoy and kind of savor in those turns, you're gonna enjoy this. If you're on the West Coast, the snow is so soft that you really don't need this kind of ski to make those sweet turns. It's like being really smooth in an area that's already really smooth. It's like having a luxury car and then taking it on a pristine road. You don't notice that smoothness difference as much as you would if you took a luxury car on a bumpy road and it's got the really good suspension. I know that's kind of a weird analogy, but bear with me.
Yeah, top end ski for sure. Check out this new Stockli Stormrider 88 here at skiessentials.com, and we'll see you out there on the hill. Bye.
Okay, I will say that I think Bob did a very good job eloquently describing the Stockli in a way that I've been kind of struggling to. That, yeah, it really, like, it isn't hitting a home run grand slam where it's just beating everybody by a mile. There are things that Atomic does better. There are things that Salomon does better. There's things that Fischer, K2, you know, you name it. And there's a ski that does some element of it better. But in the things that it's good at, it's really smooth and really clean and really well calibrated. And it has a nice balance of things that you want on the East Coast. On the West Coast, it's overkill. It's really lacking that value proposition for such an expensive ski. But on the East Coast, I would say it's one of the smoothest skis for people that put a lot of mileage on. And you'll notice that if you're somebody who really loves to carve and really wants a finely tuned turn, you can really enjoy this. Big thumbs up for Bob, very good. Overall, I think I've said everything I can say about the Stockli Stormrider 88. I think it's a really nice ski, but there gets to be a little bit of, I think people overestimate how good it is everywhere. I think it's a really great East Coast ski. If I was on the East Coast, I'd have no problem recommending it to friends. In fact, I still do. I have family that skis on the Stockli. But for the West Coast, it kind of becomes overkill because our snow is so soft that you can feather your turns and enjoy the same kind of turn. If you have hero snow, you know how you can kind of get away with a lot more. Out west, it's like hero snow every day. It's really, really good. It's a very nice ski. If you enjoy carving, you'll enjoy the ski. But if you're not on the East Coast, I don't think the value is really there. I think you could enjoy a handful of other skis that are gonna get you that turn for a third or half of the price depending on when you buy them. And I know everyone likes to pretend like price doesn't matter, but it does. It absolutely matters. You can't charge double and expect people not to talk about it. That's just my opinion. Overall, it's still a very nice ski. Like I said, it's probably an 8.5 or 9 overall. And if you're on the East Coast, I'd probably bump it up another half, like 9 to 9.5 if you're on the East Coast. But that's just my opinion. And you know, like I said, I own them. I enjoyed them for several years, but I wanted something that was gonna provide more smoothness off the trail. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Have you skied on Stockli? Do you have anything you want to say in the comments? Let me know. And as always, thank you for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this. If you consider liking, subscribing, that helps my channel out a lot. But more than anything, just thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. See ya.